Many people see discipline as restriction. So it's a set of rules that we need to obey to avoid the punishment. And that's because it reminds us being disciplined as a child, because we all were, at least I was for sure. But then there is another way to see discipline, and that's mastery. It's a code of behavior that allows you to exceed at something, to grow, to progress, and to reach your goal.
Welcome once again to the Growth Plug podcast. And today we have Kate as our guest, and she will be sharing with us what it means to be good busy. Over to you, Kate. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, currently I'm a productivity coach and leadership coach. I work with mid-senior leaders to help them free up time from bed busy work. But before that, I was in client relationship management and client experience, mostly for retail, luxury brands, and hospitality brands. And right now, my vision is to bring more good busyness to the workplace, because I believe being busy is a good thing. It makes us fulfilled as long as it's intentional. So that's what good busy means, basically.
Okay, so what is the difference between the good busy and the bad busy, and how do we even know that our busy is bad?
Well, I think there is a lot of bed busyness in the workplace, actually. There is an Asana report that says that around 60% of the work that we do in the workplace is actually work about work. It's unnecessary meetings, it's unnecessary emails, it's unnecessary work. Very often, there are teams that are working in parallel. And for me, one of the key reasons why it happens is because we do not ask enough questions in the workplace. We just assume a lot, we guess a lot, and there is this kind of idea that we all need to know everything. We always need to have all the answers. But I love this quote that says, it's not the answer that enlightens, it's the question. So when you ask the right questions, you kind of limit that bad busy work that everybody is busy with, because a lot of work that we do doesn't have any intention. A lot of people just accept meetings just because there is a free slot in their calendar, and what happens is that their calendar is overwhelmed with meetings and they don't have actually time to do the other work that is part of their task and their responsibilities. I do not believe that we need to cancel meetings, because companies are groups of people, but we need to become much more intentional with meetings. So there are rules, like if the meeting doesn't have any goal in the invitation, right, in the invitation email, or it doesn't have any agenda, you don't have a role assigned, you don't have any prep work, well, you don't accept that meeting. That's it. It's going to be a non-productive meeting that is going to lead to even more meetings after that. So everybody is kind of used to blame it on someone else, but it's the self-serving bias, right? So whenever things go well, we pat ourselves on the shoulder and say, well done. But whenever things are not going our way, we tend to say that it's the fault of the company, it's the fault of other people. But we need to be mindful that meetings do not accept themselves. We do. Meetings do not set up themselves. We do. So we need to be mindful both ways. And that's why, for me, the more questions we ask, the better decisions we make. And that's why I call productivity a game of decisions. And that's, for me, what good busyness is that you take more intentional decisions and then your busyness becomes productive.
Wow. And while you were speaking, I was just thinking about it. I think I've accepted multiple meetings and I've set up multiple meetings as well. So just like you said, I'll take responsibility without clear agenda. So it's like, let's come together. I miss you. Let's talk about things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
miss you meetings are great as well, but the intention is then we are
yeah.
catching up, right? We're building the bond, we're building the relationship, but then you need to be mindful that that was the catch-up meeting. That was not a
Yeah.
meeting, to do or to decide. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes when we start probably new roles, we come into teams where And I think this is an opportunity to actually help the team. Maybe a team has 4 or 5 meetings a day, and we get to still be with each other. Maybe it's actually a good opportunity to look into it and say, why are we the same set of people meeting multiple times a day to make decisions when we can bring all of this together, right? Instead of taking 30 minutes, like have one solid hour, get things done. Yeah, very good concept. And was there anything that triggered this, your search for a good busy from your personal experience, or you just noticed that there was an opportunity to do something different, or was it an experience that led to this search for a good busy?
I think there are different things that happen in my life overall. I think I value time a lot. Personal things that happened that made me value time. We overestimate the time we have. And
Mm,
that's why I became much more intentional with my own time. And whenever I started kind of thinking how I use my time and I started to have desires for more hobbies or more time with family, I realized that I couldn't have more time. I could only choose more wisely. And that was the thing that made me realize that there are so many choices that I was responsible for that took away my time at work, and as a result it kind of encroached into my personal time after work.
yeah,
So the moment I started being more mindful with my choices at work, and again taking that responsibility instead of
yeah,
putting it on others, that's where I kind of realized that the amount of work that was given to me could have been done with less resources, because at the end it's I was not paid for the hours that I was doing that work. I was paid for the result, and I was hired for the result, and the same was for my team. So I started to be much more mindful, and I cut a lot of unnecessary work that we had. And I must be honest, like my team, I did the same for my team. I said, we don't need this. We don't need this additional PowerPoint. No, we're not attending that meeting
yeah,
because we don't need to present anything. We had kind of a habit in our department to um, for everybody attend the same meetings, and we were like 5 6 people in the team, and then I started realizing why do we all have to be there? So there's one person who represents the team because we communicated very clearly inside the team,
yeah,
so the person knows everything that is happening. They collect the information, they can speak on behalf of the team,
yeah,
and then we kind of share so everybody else can do their own work or prioritize other meetings that mattered more to us. So just really by switching that mindset that it's not the external factors, but the
yeah.
internal, is the inner game, that it's just changed everything for me. Yeah.
Uh, I think I had a similar experience last year, and same thing my boss did. For some reason, some of us were always attending the same meetings, and one day he was like, "Why are all of you attending this meeting? One person can do it and save the time for others. Come back, you have
Yeah.
a meeting, an alignment meeting," and I think it was a game changer as well. So those internal factors, like you called them, as opposed to just looking out for externally what is influencing this and changing that. Good. I read through your values on your page, and I saw different things: curiosity, like you mentioned, discipline, empathy, and some. But for me, I liked the discipline. I walk the talk. How important is that in today's today's world where there's so much knowledge? We can come up with wonderful slides. ChatGPT can give you a very good presentation. How important is discipline in getting it done, walking the talk?
It's everything. I mean, you can talk as much as you want to talk, but things are not going to get done. You're not going to progress. So that's why they say actions are louder than words, right? And discipline is important. And I posted about it recently on LinkedIn, the way I see discipline, because many people see discipline as restriction. So it's a set of rules that we need to obey to avoid the punishment. And that's because it reminds us being disciplined as a child, because we all were, at least I
Mm.
was for sure. But then there is another way to see discipline, and that's mastery. It's a code of behavior that allows you to exceed at something, to grow, to progress, and to reach your goal. And that's the sort of discipline that my tennis coach, so I played tennis for 10 years, sort of training to become a professional. And that's the discipline that my coach instilled in me. So that's the discipline that you want to embrace, because that's the only way to get to where you want to be. But a lot of people kind of confuse this too, and also they don't understand how to switch to the other one. It's because discipline as a mastery doesn't work if you are pushed to repeat things that are not working. And what you need to understand is that you need to constantly kind of remove those weeds, right?
Yeah.
So I tried this, but it's not working. And when you start just focusing on the things that are working, so that's good busy versus bad busy, right? So on the things that keep you good busy, because good busy allows you to progress, it's very easy to become consistent and disciplined, because when you do things that are giving you results, well, the happy
Yeah.
hormones keep you going, right? It's a very
Yeah.
simple science. But if you are doing things that are not driving progress, then it's extremely hard. And then you feel like it's a punishment. So you're going back to
Yeah.
that mindset. So for me, discipline is everything. It's it's the compound effect that Darren Hardy talks about. It's those small, tiny changes consistent over
Yeah.
time that can give you and bring a radical difference. But you need to be patient, because no change happens overnight. That's why I'm very, I would say, a little bit allergic to words like tips and hacks that can change things overnight. Well, it can. You can only try them, and you will have small wins, quick wins. But in order to have a sustainable result, a sustainable
Yeah.
change in your behavior, that just requires time. Yeah, and that's discipline.
Oh, love it. There's this triple D framework I read about levels of motivation, more or less. It starts with desire, discipline, and the delight. I think, like you said, the discipline has to become a delight at some point, and that's when it is good. If not, it becomes painful to you, really painful, because now you're being forced. You haven't gotten to that point where it comes with happiness, with joy. It's working. So, like you said, those happy happy hormones kick in
Yeah.
and keeps you delighted to keep going. Yeah. Oh, great. So let's talk about emails. I think I saw a post on emails you shared. Coming to the workplace, I don't know if anyone went through the art of writing emails. I personally I didn't go through that. Right. So most times we just start off with hello, how you doing? Da, 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 da. But is there a structure from your work so far? If we're to say quick hack, I know you don't like the word hack, but steps. Is there any structure to emails? I know for different seasons or different reasons, the emails will vary. But is generally how should we or how should we communicate with our emails to make them effective and productive? I think that's the goal at the end of the day because people should get what you're saying as quickly and as concise, as clear as possible. How do we bring that into something in quote as basic as emails?
I like that you mentioned the word basic at the end, because I feel it is perceived as basic, but it's actually
Yeah.
not. Email create a lot of unnecessary work, a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of
Mm.
additional emails and meetings at the end, right? So, and there are skills like this, they are called as basic, but nobody teaches us. I don't know, like as you said, you never learned the art of email. I never learned the art of email as a training or as a skill. Uh, in the university we're not taught as well. So how do we learn, right? So it is assumed that we're joining the workplace and we know how to do it, but nobody's born with skills. So, and a lot of people, I've read somewhere a statistic that a lot of people do not know how to use Outlook, and they are suffering in silence because they are so ashamed to say it out loud. And it's like, the number was around 25%. It's huge. 25% of people in the workplace don't feel comfortable using Outlook, and they are afraid to voice it out and to ask for help. I think that's quite an alarming statistic. So we always kind of pitch those very fancy skills, right? AI
Yep.
tools, digital, emotional intelligence, but we don't create the base for people. And I think that's where we are missing the foundation. So coming back to your question, I think the number one, I don't have like a specific number, but like of tips in
Yep.
mind. But the first one, I would say, first of all, we need to have a communication system. And that's another thing that is lacking in the workplace. So when you come and you join the company, nobody teaches you, it's not part of the onboarding. This is our
Yep.
communication system, right? So this is what you do for meetings. This is how kind of you use email, and this is where you use the chat. This is where you meet face
Yep.
to face or do a phone call. So that's the important thing, because a lot of people, and I'm reading a book now by Cal Newport, where he talks about the world without email. And it's true that we just basically switched from talking to each other to emailing each other, right? And email is a good tool for a lot of purposes in the workplace, like sharing information or
Yep.
reconfirming understanding after meeting, right? Sort of because we can't keep things in mind. But it's not a great tool for urgency. It's not a great
Mm.
tool to discuss or to ask 3 questions that you can discuss on the phone. In 5 minutes, you get the answers, right? So the number one thing to do is to create that system. When do we use email? When do we use calls? And sort of when do we use chat and when do we meet? So that this is for me the most important one. Then the second one that I think will probably remove about 15% of your emails from your inbox is the one word emails that are thank you. So there's a lot of people who are sending you an email and then you reply to them and they still say thank you to you. It's great. You already sent thank you to me. I'm doing my work.
Guilty.
I, I was too. It's not that I'm talking, I mean, I'm talking from experience. But the moment you remove them, some people still want to say thank you. Do it. Just drop a chat, in the chat. Thank
Yeah.
you. Got your email. That's it, right? So, but when you add that email and stuff, another one is again, and that comes from the system. Avoid the email ping pong. So I worked with someone who just loved email ping pong. Within 20 emails, because I was in copy of those, because usually I stop them, I immediately pick up the phone. But being in copy of those emails, within 20 minutes, I would receive around 30 emails, which is ridiculous because it's just a dialogue going on
Yeah.
when you can simply pick up the phone or do it via chat. So the ping pong emails have to stop. And another one I think that is very, and I would say this is the last tip that I would give is the subject line is very much
Mm.
underestimated because a lot of people just put quick question or report, sales report. So it makes it very difficult, one, to search for emails because you don't
Mm.
know which one. So there are no keywords. And the second one, there is no call to action. So it's difficult for people to prioritize. So when you add the call to action, for example, you can add for your green light or for your review or the
Yep.
deadline, right? So that can help really for people and for you to manage and to tackle important email much, much, much quicker. Yeah.
Wow. I think you just gave me the foundational training I'm lacking with emails. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah,
You're
but very
welcome.
true. Very true. Like the ping pong, sometimes you're copied, you have no business even being in that email thread, but you just keep receiving. Da, 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 da. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk transitions, right? Over the course of your career, you had to shift from one job to the other and do different things at different times. And I believe all of this require a lot of learning, a lot of flexibility, adjusting. Um, but for each of these roles or each of these things you had to do, is there or are there qualities that you had to replicate in all these roles to be effective in them? We have the very core technical skills, but we also have those soft skills that I feel, regardless of the role you do, they are very vital in your career. And during career transitions, I feel some people do struggle to blend in because maybe they don't know enough technically, maybe they're not used to the people. So, what are some of the things you say to someone who is transitioning or thinking of transitioning to help them settle in quickly, get things up and running, and become productive?
I think there are many skills, and as you say, technical skills that are sort of transferable. But then the one skill that I can't stop emphasizing on is asking questions. So when you are transitioning into a new role, first of all, there are a lot of questions that you need to ask yourself before you transition. So why are you doing it? And what's important for you? What are your expectations? Because it helps to manage your own expectations as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of unhappiness comes from our emotions. And what drives our emotions is our own expectations. Again, if we learn to accept that it's everywhere, it's an inner game and it's not the environment. I don't know if you heard about the science of happiness, but the science of happiness basically shares with you that 50% of our happiness depends on our genes, 40% depend on our actions, and 10% depend on the external factors. But we're constantly blaming the external factors. We're blaming the companies, we're blaming the benefits, we're blaming the flexibility. But the reality is it's 40% within our actions and 50 in the genes. And what happens with actions and why actions are so vital is because the actions we take decide the genes that we're going to activate.
Oh.
So happiness is basically the sum of actions that you take, nothing else, right? So you define your own happiness. So for me, I think asking questions before that transition is extremely important. And then when you get, whether it's a new role, for example, you have to understand that it's a partnership. And that's why I work with leaders, with team leaders, because a lot of leaders position themselves outside of the team, but you're part of the team always, right?
Yeah.
It's a captain of the team, but you're part of the team, you're playing with them. So it's the responsibility of not just HR and IT to onboard you. And I wrote in my newsletter about it this week, but it's also it's most importantly, it's team leaders' responsibility to welcome you and to create that, what I call a Disneyland-like experience, so that you get that excitement for the person to start, but you also build that very strong foundation for a person to say, okay, I know what do I need to do? Because it's exciting to switch and transition, but it's also extremely overwhelming. So when you remove certain uncertainties, right, from the leader's side, then it really helps the other person to blend in, to become more productive right away. But when it comes to you, so again, ask questions. If you didn't get that onboarding, because in my experience, I can tell you I worked for 7 different companies, and I can tell you I had probably I would say maybe 1.5 great onboarding experiences. All the rest, it's either was non-existent or just HR, paperwork. So it's important for you to ask questions, right? So what is my responsibility, right? What are the expectations? How do we work with a team? Back to the email question, what is our communication system, right? What is our filing system? Where do I find this? Who is my body? Like, body system is fantastic. When I was my best onboarding experience was my first job. I worked at Levi's, and I think my expectations were set really, really high based on that. And I remember having a buddy, and it was an amazing thing because it's a person that you can constantly ask questions to,
Yeah.
and that person is not judging you. They understand that this is their role, but also they are kind of, it's an opportunity to bond, right, between
Yeah.
colleagues. So I read a Microsoft report that says that people who have a buddy, 90% of people who have a buddy in the first 3 months say that they are much more productive right
Yeah.
away. So it's very important. If you don't have a good onboarding that is proposed by the team leader, you have to take charge. And even if you do have a great onboarding, take charge. It's a team, it's a teamwork. So
Yeah.
ask questions. This is the number one skill, I think, that kind of helped me to transition in every role and in every country where I've been, because I traveled a bit. So, but this is definitely a skill that I think we underestimate today.
Yeah.
And it has a humongous impact on your productivity and the time you can actually have for yourself.
Wow. No, very, very true. I also experienced the body onboarding system when I joined my current organization, and trust me, it was fantastic. In fact, coincidentally, my body was staying very close to my house back then. I came that morning to pick me from my house to the office. How cool is that
Yeah.
first day of work? And I
Yeah.
was like, I love this organization. I'm staying. So it helped definitely to get things up and running. Oh, this is the restaurant. This is the offices.
I
This is
agree.
where you can
Yeah.
rest. It seems basic, but very important. And building
I
that
agree.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's,
So,
the big office. I mean, you work for a very big organization, right? And I worked for big
yeah,
organizations as well. The first time in the office, it feels like it's a maze, right? You really don't know where to go. So just
exactly.
having that person who can, get you through the maze,
Yeah.
for a 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, it's extremely helpful. It's reassuring. So you feel more safe. And when you feel safe, then you are not blurred, your productivity is not blurred, but all these emotions
Yeah.
of uncertainty, anxiety and stuff, and you can focus. And when you get to focus, well, you become productive.
Productive. Good. And also with respect to questions, I think it's very important. I forgot where I read this, but two ways. They said most times the answer still lies within you, but the questions will bring that answer. So questions are tools to really unveil what is locked up within you. And same way, gaining clarification when you join a new team, because people struggle. And I understand it can be overwhelming. New faces, new processes, new tools. It's just a lot.
It's a
But
lot. Yeah.
yeah, but just understanding that it's a teamwork, and the team has to also be very friendly. I think this is sometimes some teammates, yeah, they might not give the best vibe, and maybe that will dissuade others from coming. But it's always good to create that environment where people are safe to ask questions. They can be curious and not feel ashamed because they asked what probably everyone should know. And yeah, at the end of the day, we just get to work together and be more productive. Yeah, good. Your niche is 30%, like to help people free up 30% of their time, right? Or become, is there science to that number? Is there science to it?
Well, the science is based on the research of, that I mentioned earlier. So Asana says
Okay.
that the bed busy work can take up to 60% of our time at work.
Okay.
So I truly believe that it's true based on my own experience and based on people that
Okay.
I worked with. And I don't like to overpromise. So I think
Yeah.
that taking it all away is sort of unrealistic, is aiming for the perfection.
Yeah.
Is there an absolute perfection? No. So based on my experience, it's a good solid 30% that
Yeah.
can absolutely happen. Again, it's something that, like, I always follow up with my clients a couple of months later after we finished working together, and we do that comparison where they were before and where they were now. I have a client who wanted to create a side hustle, didn't have time, And so we work toward that. So how much time do you need? Well, I need sort of one day at work. Sorry, 1 day a week, right? So outside
Mhm.
of that, overall, outside of the normal corporate job, and that's what
Yep.
they have right now. So they are working on their side hustle during the week,
Nice.
but the work at in the office it still gets done, and they have amazing performance reviews. So yeah.
Wow, nice. And that's the goal, I think, for most people. For me, people always ask, how do you have time to work and do some other things like the podcast? And for me, I'm a productivity enthusiast. I look for every opportunity to be productive because my basic idea is if I'm productive, I'll most likely be faster. I'll free up time, and then I can do other things. For me, it's the simple maths. Increase your productivity, free up time, use it for other things you want to do. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful discussion. And are there things probably your projects you want to talk about? People, where can they reach you? Some of your services, if you want to share with us.
Yeah, so people can reach me on LinkedIn. So I post from Monday to Friday, 3 to 5 times a week. And I have a newsletter that I send every Monday morning. And I have a website that is called thegoodbz.com, where you can find all my coaching services. I also do team trainings, group trainings, workshops. And I can also do micro learning or simply speak at your event like I'm speaking to you today. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you once again. And yeah, for now, to our listeners, please look into your productivity, the internal, the internal factors you can influence, and do well to follow Kate. And yeah, read through our materials. I've done that, and it has helped me a lot. Thank you once again, Kate, and enjoy the rest
Thank
of
you,
your day.
Wilson. Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.